Hi, I'm DJ Ware. On this episode of the CyberGizmo, I'm going to go back to 2019 and take a look at my predictions for the year 2020. See how well I did right after this. I guess the year 2020 it can be summed up as the year of surprises. But yeah, let's see how we did here. So the first one is the AMD CPUs that were announced early in 2020, which of course was the third generation Threadripper. And the 3090-90X released with what I thought would be, a 64 core, 128 threads, mimicking what's on EPYC. And yes, indeed it did. The TDPs, yeah, somewhere around 280 watts, but in actuality, when you're actually running this in real world loads, probably much higher. But the cost of the time were unknown. It's about $3,500, as you know. But you get 64 cores and 128 threads. I mean, just a few years ago, that would have been a lot of different desktop machines you would have to have in order to equal that number of processors. So priced according to, I guess, what you get. AMD CPUs on the Zen 3, I don't think I even came close to this one, so I'm counting this one as a complete miss. I said it would be released in 2020. Well, yeah, it was at just barely in November. The actual is 16 cores, 32 threads, and I said it would be 64 cores, 128 threads on an 8x8 chiplet, and no, it's a 2x8 core chiplet instead. So that, of course, is going to throw the TDP off as well, because I said it'd be 120 to 225 watts. No, not even close. Actual was 65 to 105. I said it would be 8-channel because if you have that many cores, you're going to need quite a few channels of memory in order to support it. Not realizing that if I had looked at the AM4 spec, I would have seen that, no, that just wasn't possible. So dual channel DDR4 is what you get with that. So as far as the increase in transistor density and power requirements, those came along with the 7 nanometer as well. So definitely did that. ARM. Now, when I say Hercules, there is a Texas Instrument ARM-based chip called Hercules, and I'm not talking about that one. This is the code name that ARM used to put on the roadmap for processor designs that they were going to release in 2020. And so this would be processor designs for 7 nanometer and 5 nanometer chips. And TSMC, I said, would probably sometime in March announce that they had a 5 nanometer process ready to go, and indeed they do. So I think it was right around March the 2nd when they announced that capability was available for production use, or at least an initial rollout. I don't think you don't really move that quickly from ramping up a plant into going from 7 to 5 nanometer that quickly. So it probably would be for samples. I would guess. I don't know. I'm not a member of staff at TSMC, so I don't really know that. Where I thought the performance would be about 15% over the Cortex A76. Well, in fact, that was wrong. The performance was actually much higher. It was 20% over the Cortex A77. And I thought, well, okay, so the power requirements would be about 10% more efficient than the Cortex A76. I missed that. They're actually 30% more efficient than the Cortex A77. So I guess, partially correct, partially incorrect. I mean, it's hard to gauge where the silicon lottery is going to lay out once you take the design and then you commit it to silicon. So those two things were just complete guesses. I'll admit it. I did say that when I did this initially. So Intel Ice Lake, for the most part, released on 10 nanometer in 2020, and but desktop people, the 10th generation chips are 14 nanometer, as we all know. I don't know how many pluses there are behind that 14 nanometer now, but it's probably getting into powers of 2 now. as far as the other kinds of things about it, I mean, yeah, it was pretty well known what was going to go into this chip. Intel had well, there was enough leaks, let's put it that way, to kind of piece things together to get it fairly accurate. But now we have Tiger Lake, and Rocket Lake is really in here too. Tiger Lake released on the mobile platforms as 10th generation, as a 10 nanometer, 11th generation on 10 nanometer. Super FinFET is what Intel calls it. And that did happen. But there isn't any chips that arrived on the 11th gen for the desktop, at least not that I've seen so far. Maybe you guys know something I don't, but I've looked on Intel's site. I don't see any on the 11th gen. And Rocket Lake, we know, got pushed back as well. That was supposed to go on 7 nanometer, and that got pushed back as into early 2021 as well. So I just don't know what's going to happen here. As far as whether or not the LPDDR5 will come true, or whether what the TDPs will actually be, I don't know. So I'm saying that's a complete mess. Yep, complete mess. General comments on the CPUs. This was the one in white is the comments from 2019. AMD will continue to increase its presence in the desktop and high-end desktop, mobile, and server marketplace. Wow, what an understatement that was. AMD not only challenged Intel on those platforms, they decimated them on the desktop completely. I don't think anybody will say that Intel is definitely a leader in the desktop marketplace anymore. I think they're now in second place and probably rapidly about to become third. ARM is seriously challenging Intel on the mobile platform. We just saw that with the release of Apple's M1. Now, to be fair, Apple has taken the ARM spec and modified it and calls it Apple Silicon, because they do have proprietary designs that are laid on top of that to increase its performance. But I think Apple has kind of shown, at least in the benchmarks I have seen, that ARM is definitely viable as not only as a possible desktop replacement. We'll see how it goes. I mean, this is just the initial release into their new ARM architecture. I should say Apple Silicon architecture, because it is the ARM instruction set that drives it, but the design is pure Apple. Intel appears stalled. Yeah, again, that's an understatement there. I would say they're flopping around as a fish out of water at this point. I just don't think they have the direction and the engineering leadership at the highest levels in the company that they need in order to get out of this problem. The problem when you have marketing people and people that are finance based or business oriented in engineering firms, I've seen this all my life. They're reactionary. They don't understand the technology well enough in order to be able to leapfrog when they need to. At this point in Intel, I mean, this is my opinion only, Intel needs to really bet the farm and bet their company on trying to get back into the game and becoming competitive in the marketplace. And they'll never do that with people with business degrees. You have to have an engineer at the helm to do that. That has always been true with every company I've ever been involved with. Business people are fine when the market is growing and you're growing it into a very steady rate. But when your competition is beating you in the marketplace every which way but loose, then you have to get the engineers back up into the helm to get the company back on track, so that then you can then manage it as a business. I'm sorry, stockholders, but that is the way it works. And if you leave those marketing people in place, reactionary is not going to work when you're trying to beat designs that have come from behind and excelled beyond your ability to handle it. I'm just saying, that's all I'm saying. Risk, I did cover that in another video, and I'll do that again when I get to it. So GPUs, I missed the name on this one. I said 5800. Of course, it was the 5700 that was released early in 2020. I think probably as far as the capabilities of the chip hardware-wise, yeah, it's pretty spot on. It was supposed to be targeted at the RTX 2070 Super. Did it really make it? Maybe. I think a lot of people would say it probably competed more with the 2070 than the 2070 Super, and I think overall the position of the chip was more at the 2080, and never really got up into the 2080 Super and 2080 Ti. It was just kind of disappointing overall. So I am counting that as a miss, and it just didn't perform as well as we all thought it might. AMD's Arcturus, however, did release in 2020. In fact, it just released a few days ago. Arcturus is a server-based card similar to the Ampere for servers from Nvidia. It was released as the MI100 on November the 22nd, and this is an enterprise-level GPU, which brings, of course, GPU capabilities to VMs to support multiple users. So it will require Linux 5.10, however, in order for the drivers to be supported in it. And 5.10 is out. I don't think it is yet considered to be stable just yet, but it's imminent. It's probably it's imminent. It's not far away. Nvidia's RTX 2080 Ti Super never materialized. That's a complete miss. I think probably Nvidia felt they just didn't want to compete with the Titan, and the amount of room between the 2080 Ti and the Titan was just a bit too tight, maybe. Intel Xe GPUs now, we have seen those in the mobile. They have started to show up in both on the 11th gen systems for mobile, but there aren't very many of those laptops carrying that CPU. There's only 3 of them that I know of at the time that I'm doing this video. So the one that we're really waiting for is the Intel Xe Max, which is the discrete GPU card, which is supposed to now be delayed until Rocket Lake comes out. So yeah, who knows when that'll be. Intel says 2021, sometime in the first quarter. Well, we'll see if that happens. And also the desktop 11th gen on Tiger Lake hasn't materialized either. Nvidia will continue to be the market leader. I'm on the whole, I think that's correct, but I think AMD has really pulled up into parity now with Nvidia. And when AMD drops the shoe on the 6900, I think that will flip. Now, I don't know what Nvidia has planned. I'm not in privy to any of their information, and nor do I want to be. But I'm sure that Nvidia won't let that cannon fire go unanswered. They never have in the past. But one comment that I made in 2019 that I'll reiterate, that I still think that Nvidia, even though they had great gains in the 3090, the 3080, and 3070, I still think that they're starting to fall into the same trap that Intel did. They've been up at the top for so long that I only have to do what I need to do to get up a little bit better. If you look at the innovations that they did for the 3080 and 3090, they're mostly just speed gains, right? Speed and power, and adding more cords, adding more transistors. But when they talked about it, how far up the chart was gaming on the number of times they mentioned, desktop gaming as being, that's not really what these cards are directed at. They're really directed at artificial intelligence. They're directed at ray tracing, and they're directed at rendering. So that would be systems that would be more in line with servers than it would be for desktop. And of course, you can't get them anyway, because there's rumors that they're manufacturing them and they're pumping them out as quick as they can, but as soon as they hit the market, they're gone within minutes. I don't know who's buying them up so quickly, but apparently somebody is. I just haven't seen too much evidence that it's really showing up yet for any of us here in the lower tiers on the desktop platforms. For Linux, AMD is still the preferred platform. Proprietary drivers continue to be an issue, although there have been some things that make the Nvidia drivers easier to install. They're still harder than having it inside the kernel. AMD is still playing catch up with Nvidia. I don't think that's true anymore, so I think that's a miss. I think on the graphics side, I think AMD has at least reached parity with Nvidia. And waiting to see what happens when the 6900 is released, and we'll see what happens there. At that point, they may be the market leader and not Nvidia. But Intel, don't know. Still don't know. It's still a wait and see. So, but one thing is for certain, we finally have competition in the desktop marketplace as well as in the server marketplace. That is always a good thing, and we always want that because that keeps the prices down for all of us. Although hopefully availability will come around, because availability being rare to find these things will keep the price high. Anyway, that's all I had for today. I hope you. I'd say about 50% of the time I had at least most of it right. So that's not really high enough to say a good job of predicting. I'd say more likely maybe a fail in trying to get it. So I'll try to improve that for next year, and we'll see what happens. And if you feel different, leave me a comment below and tell me what you think. Other than that, hope to see you again real soon. Please like and subscribe. As always, see you again in the next video, and bye for now.